So General Hospital viewers just found out Steve Burton is leaving again after February. It's a real shocker for folks who've been watching for a long time, bringing back that feeling of things repeating. A bit of sadness and not knowing quite what to expect next. If you're a Port Charles fan, you know Burton isn't just some actor who comes and goes. He times Jason Morgan, that character who went from being a fancy Quartermain kid to the tough stone-cold enforcer. His story has really shaped the show for years. This announcement doesn't really feel like a normal contract talk or just a temporary change to the schedule. This feels like a huge change, making people really think about how nothing lasts forever. Even in a field that's all about what came before. It's pretty ironic, isn't it? This isn't the first time Burton's departure from General Hospital caused such a stir. He lost his job on the show in November 2021. He wouldn't follow ABC's rule about getting the COVID-19 vaccine, which was a policy put in place when the pandemic was at its worst. Back then, that choice stirred up a real fuss, striking a chord with people because it mixed big public health rules with what folks felt was right for them. Personally, when he left, it was really sudden, full of stress and not knowing what would happen next. And it left a big hole in the story that the show just couldn't quite deal with. Jason Morgan being gone really changed things up, shifted who had power in the Corinthos group, and broke some hearts that had been close for years. When Burton came back in March 2024, everyone treated it like a big triumphant return. The music got loud, the camera stayed focused, and it felt like Port Charles could finally breathe. When he showed up again, it felt like things could finally go back to normal. We all hoped for some stability, a return to what we knew, and maybe even a consistent set of rules, even if they weren't perfect in a world where everyone seemed to be changing sides. They really carefully brought him back into the story, connecting all the threads and picking up those storylines that were left hanging. It was plain to see Jason Morgan was right back at home. It was like the whole story just clicked back into place around him on General Hospital, as if everything in that universe just lined up again. So with Burton confirming he's off again after February, it just brings all those bad feelings back. This situation feels different this time. Nobody's talking about a network mandate issue blowing up in the news. It's more a quiet, a deep realization that his time with GH is starting a fresh chapter. No matter if it's just a short break or something that sticks around for a while, it definitely makes a difference. The show needs to figure out a new direction, but it's going to be tough without one of its most important pieces. This news changes everything for the story, going way beyond just who's playing a part. Jason Morgan was always both protecting and attacking in Port Charles. He has this way of calming things down even when he's right in the thick of it. When he's gone, everyone else has to figure things out in ways they never expected. Sonny's empire is a lot shakier without Jason, who was always the quiet thinker and loyal bodyguard. Carly's feelings change once more. The ongoing delicate balance between law enforcement and organized crime continues to tremble. We need to rethink all the numbers in these storylines. Timing is another thing we need to think about. When Burton came back in 2024, it really brought all those old storylines back to life. And fans finally got to see those romantic and family ties they'd been hoping for again after so many years. Taking him out of the painting at this point makes things way more intense. It looks like whatever way out gets made, it's not just going to disappear quietly. It's really going to need to make a big impression. On a soap opera, when someone this big leaves, it's pretty much never going to be a straightforward exit. They're explosive, tragic, or just plain mysterious. The writers have a tough job ahead, figuring out how to write Jason out of the story in a way that respects everything. He's brought to it all while still pushing the plot forward into new and exciting places. Folks are already starting to guess what's going on. Will Jason actually go on a mission that's too wild to say no to? Meaning he'd have to leave Port Charles for something only he can handle. Are we about to see him presumed dead yet? Again, repeating that whole cycle he seems to get caught up in. Or maybe the show will go a quieter route, letting him leave because of family stuff or something he's got to sort out personally. Every choice has a story that comes with it. Every little tweak changes how the whole show feels emotionally. This moment feels especially tense because of what happened back in 2021. That felt like I didn't have a choice in leaving. It was because of company rules and my own beliefs clashing with what they wanted. That really broke things up and definitely split the fans into different groups. Burton not being around anymore really got people talking, especially when you think about the pandemic and all those rules workplaces started putting in place. He's leaving after February, so things are clearly different, but you can still feel the echoes of what was. It's impossible for people watching to avoid comparing these two goodbyes. They'll naturally look at how each one felt, what was said, and what it all means. It feels like the way the story is being changed right now is really thought out. The writers probably know this character leaving needs to do a few extra things. It really needs to shake things up. It's got to hit home. It should open doors, not close them. In a TV show where characters keep coming back from almost dying, sometimes not seeing someone can make just as much of an impact as seeing them. With Jason gone, it opens up space for other players to really step up and grow. Things could get really tense, rivalries might heat up. and people who used to be safe under his protection could find themselves in a much tougher spot. But it's not just about what happens. There's a deeper feeling to it. Steve Burton really connects with his audience, and it's not made up. A lot of people feel like he's been a constant in their lives even as everything else kept changing. People have come and gone and the stories have gotten crazy, but Jason Morgan, played by Burton, was always there. He was someone you could always count on. His firm voice, calm focus, and constant loyalty were truly touching. It's like watching him leave again really makes you face the idea that even the biggest stars won't last forever. It's probably why this announcement feels like such a big deal. It's more than just a single person quitting a job. We are looking at completely changing how a whole story world is put together. Yeah, like shockwaves are really messing things up in Port Charles, totally shaking up friendships and alliances, making everyone figure out new plans. Writers are getting ready to really make an impact with their stories, ones that people will remember even after February is over. Fans are preparing themselves again, stuck between being thankful for what was and being worried about what's coming. February's almost over and things are really going to heat up. With Jason, every moment he's on screen will feel heavier. Every look shared could be the last. So it's not even a question anymore. Steve Burton said himself he's out. So the big question is, what happens to General Hospital now that he's gone? Is this going to be just another repeat of coming and going, or is this a lasting change? With soap operas, things rarely really just end. But the emotions you feel are always true. So as Steve Burton gets ready to leave GH again, Port Charles is looking at another big moment. Things are bound to shift, possibly in shocking ways, and it'll really change how all the future stories play out. You know how rumors just blow up in the soap opera world, right? Well, the newest gossip about Steve Burton leaving General Hospital has made everything even more dramatic than it already. So Burton said he's leaving GH after February. Right, but everyone's still kinda guessing what's really going on with the show. One of the wildest theories going around with the fans is that Burton and Maurice Benard, who've worked together for ages, might be having some tension. Just to be clear, there's been no official word saying that the two actors actually had a personal disagreement. Just the idea that there might be some friction between the actors who play Jason Morgan and Sonny Corinthos has really set off a passionate discussion. Burton and Benard have been the backbone of General Hospital for a long time, easily one of the best pairings in soap opera history. Jason and Sonny really were the main guys running the show in Port Charles crime-wise. Their stories were always about loyalty, then betrayal, big sacrifices, and who had the power. These two really became the heart of the show, both emotionally and when it came to their plans. When there are whispers that the actors aren't getting along, fans naturally start wondering about what could happen next. If folks couldn't agree on how characters should grow, or even just squabbled a bit over who got to call the shots story-wise, it would mess up the whole flow of the show in a really big way. Lately, you might have noticed a real change in how GH tells its stories. Things haven't always been stable in the Corinthos organization when it comes to who's really running the show. It feels like Jason's spot in the pecking order has been a bit reined in, or maybe even reset. You know, a few folks have pointed out that Sonny really seems to take over in the big storylines lately, and sometimes it feels like Jason is just kind of reacting to things instead of making them happen. It's quite possible this is just creativity at play. Soaps that have been on forever are always changing things up to keep the stories interesting. When people get really into fandoms, everything feels more intense, so even small changes can seem huge. It seems like control keeps coming up in our chats. They wanted control not just over the fake underworld in Port Charles, but also the creative decisions happening behind the scenes. In this kind of work where a story can change a lot depending on contracts, how many people are watching, and if actors are around, even small changes can make people think there's some kind of power struggle going on. If things got heated, like arguments about screen time, what a character got to do, or where their story was going, that wouldn't be anything new. Working on a soap opera is a team effort, even though things can get pretty intense. When actors really get into their characters, they often have some pretty strong ideas about where the story should go and what kind of vibe it should have. People are saying Burton left because of growing problems backstage, which really just adds to the idea that things aren't very stable there. When he came back in 2024, it really felt like things were coming full circle and getting a fresh start. Especially after all the public fuss around his firing in November 2021 because of the COVID-19 vaccine rule, it was like getting a fresh start, a way to put things back in order. Seeing him leave so quickly again definitely makes you wonder. Was this just a personal decision, a contract negotiation outcome, or maybe it's just all that creative tension finally bubbling over? It feels like things are pretty up in the air right now, especially because there's this sense that General Hospital is going through some internal changes. Things have gotten darker in stories, alliances aren't as solid, and you never really know what's going to happen next. So if Burton heading out ties into this bigger change, it really could mean a huge shakeup in who runs things on the show. With Jason gone, Sonny doesn't have his go-to guy and everything changes. People who used to count on Jason to quietly handle things might find themselves out in the open now. Sunny's whole operation, which Jason really kept together for ages, might just start falling apart now. Calling this a war inside GH probably says more about excited fans than what's really going on. Making soap is quite involved. Sometimes people just don't see eye to eye when they're making something together. Actors change. All good things come to an end, and that applies to contracts too. People often guess a lot more than what we actually know for sure. How people see things can really change how much they get into it. When people watching think there's some kind of big secret drama going on in the background, it really makes what they see on screen even more interesting. When things get a little tense, be it from different ideas or personal stuff, it just goes to show how quickly even the best TV partnerships can become pretty fragile. Burton and Benard really created something lasting. Even with all the betrayal, death coming back to life, and changing sides, their characters' bonds always came back to trust. It's kind of funny how the talk of the actors not getting along actually makes the whole dramatic meaning even stronger. When fiction shows us problems that might actually happen, soap fans just love to pick apart that kind of narrative symmetry. The GH writers have this huge job ahead of them, figuring out how to work Burton leaving into the story they're already telling. If you leave too fast or in a big noisy way, it'll just make things feel even more out of control. When something feels a bit mysterious, it can actually set things up pretty well for later on. No matter how you look at it, things are definitely being reevaluated right now. Taking Jason out of the picture really messes with the usual power balance of the show. It really pushes things to come together in new ways. This asks for a certain kind of storytelling. Folks are talking, and whether it's true or just a lot of chatter. One thing is for sure. Steve Burton leaving General Hospital in February is a seriously big deal for the show. The talk about who's in charge, how power shifts, and the growing tension both in the show and behind the scenes has just become part of the whole drama. In this type of game, what people think and say really drives excitement. So even little rumors can seem like the very beginning of a huge fight. Port Charles is changing again. And fans are all wondering the same thing. How's Jason going to leave this time? Folks are also thinking about the hidden reasons behind this decision. In the world of soap operas, nothing is ever simple. Things fall apart. Power shifts. That's a pretty big idea. It makes you think about how things change, like when one group or person used to have all the control. And then, for whatever reason, someone else starts getting it. It happens all the time in big ways and small. You see it in history with empires rising and falling, and you even see it in everyday life. Like when a new leader takes over a team or a company. It's never really a static thing, it's always kind of moving around. Sometimes, the really interesting drama plays out where what we know for sure bumps up against what we're just guessing at.